Good morning, everybody. Justin Underwood here. I hope you're having a marvelous day. We are live at Catalyst with my buddy James Douglas,
How are you?
who's back at the mic here for another episode of Local Wisdom. And I'm excited to have James back in the booth.
It's good to be back. My feet feel much better here at home.
Oh, well, we're going to hear more about that in a minute, I hope. But last week we had Rick Gio as a pitch hitter for James.
Yeah, you probably should just get him to come full time.
He
I'm
did.
Just saying.
I'll tell you, if you want to look bad behind a mic, sit with Rick Gio. That guy.
Yeah, I had to change out mics because it was like had this golden touch.
It
to
did.
It, yeah,
It still had a glow.
Yes.
A Rick Gio glow. No, I love me some Mr. Rick Gio. He's great behind the mic. It was good to have him here. But honestly, man, I'm really thankful you're back.
Oh, thank you for letting me be here.
Where were you at?
The land of the mouse.
Oh, Mickey Mouse.
Yes. No, it was really, really hot. I was taking 20,000 steps a day,
Holy smokes.
and it was really good though. It was a good time. My oldest daughter graduated high school.
Mm-hmm.
We took a few of her friends and her, and
Okay, so this was her senior trip, in a sense.
yeah, that's what it was. Yeah.
I love that. That's really good.
No,
Now,
it was good.
I know I'm a little bit of a Disney person myself. James and I, we kind of live the same life, actually.
Sort of.
I'm sorry to put that on you, but
You just live it to a better, to more
no,
full,
no.
more full
I mean,
potential.
We're both pastors, elders at North Hills, and we both have two daughters. Our youngest daughters are both named Ashlyn, of all things.
That's right.
Our kids are within a year of each other, age-wise.
Yeah, both of them. Yeah.
Both of them. We both have beautiful wives who are much smarter than us,
That's true.
and we've literally gone to Disney the exact same number of times.
Probably so.
I know
Yeah.
I mean,
Have you ridden Guardians?
but see, God, you got me. All right, there's one thing I haven't done, and that's rode Guardians of the Galaxy.
Rode it 3 times.
This is the new ride in Epcot.
Yes.
Do you recommend it?
Highly recommend it. I do not think that it's the best ride at Disney.
Okay.
But it most likely is the best roller coaster at Disney.
So it is a roller coaster. That's good to know. Tron's not open yet, right?
No.
Okay, so if it's not the best, what's the best ride at Disney?
You need to look it up. It's Riding a Banshee.
Yeah, it's still
Flight of Avatar.
it's
That's
Flight of Passage.
Flight
Yeah,
of Passage
Yeah.
is
in Pandora.
it's great, and I got to experience with new people, and got to
Watch
see
their
them.
reaction.
Oh yeah, it was great.
That's actually probably my favorite part.
Yes.
Is to watch people ride it for the first time. So that's where you were at last week. People might be wondering where were we at yesterday. Today is not Monday. It is Tuesday. And I think it's the first time truly celebrated a new federal holiday, Juneteenth.
Right.
And it just had me remembering the first time I ever heard that terminology. And it was actually in a sermon.
Okay.
Yeah, so this was probably 15 years ago, maybe 12 years ago. And the pastor was talking about kind of this, the thought process of what it might be like for a Christian who doesn't know they've been set free. And he said, well, and I'm going to use this analogy of Juneteenth. And it was that the Emancipation Proclamation Act had been enacted. It was law, but it wasn't until days, weeks later that slaves in Texas discovered it. They found out what was already legally true about them, that law had been put in place, and it was referred to as Juneteenth. Like, what day did you find out? Well, sometime in June, Juneteenth.
Right.
And because it wasn't a specific day for everybody when they discovered what had happened. And so if you didn't know, it's staying true to the theme of local wisdom. That is the genesis of what the holiday is about.
Yes.
And why we celebrate on the 19th, the last 10th of the month of June.
Right.
And that fell on Sunday. And so we celebrated it, on Monday.
And Justin's a banker, so
yeah,
it was close.
I will say this. I was surprised at how few companies are actually taking that day off right now.
Yeah. I don't recall, but it's definitely one of the few federal holidays that have been enacted in my lifetime.
Yeah, no, that's true.
And so I am surprised at how many people did not necessarily observe that going forward. So
I think it's an important holiday, personally, and the fact that it was on the heels of Father's Day was an added bonus for me.
sure, yeah, day that you could stay in your shorts. And,
Stayed in my shorts, but it didn't mean that the family still celebrated me for Father's Day. I didn't get an extra day of that, but
Okay.
but it was nice. So last week, having Rick in here was an opportunity to talk about just his thoughts on the state of things and the
Yeah.
market, and that was good. But James, last time you were here, we were talking about we were looking at home inspections versus appraisals. And look, this is a topic that you typically hear on a podcast, real estate podcast, because people generally get the two confused.
Yeah.
Home inspection, appraisal inspection, appraisal home inspection. Like they
They use the same terminology a lot of the times, and we covered a large portion of that last time. But I think we're going to move from the home inspection into the appraisal.
But before we do that, well, no, yeah, we're going to move to appraisals from home inspection. But before we move from home inspection, did I ever tell you about how the paper mill killed a deal that I was a part of?
No, but it's not surprising.
Yeah, so I was doing a loan, and these people were buying a house, and it was south of the interstate. I won't say the neighborhood, and they had a strong offer in, and we're moving forward. Went to the home inspection, and they could smell the paper mill. And
Along with everyone else in West Virginia.
and true story. These people were lifelong residents of this town.
Right.
It was not new to them. And in the inspection report, they wrote in that the reason they were backing out was due to the smell of the paper mill.
So, Justin, during the inspection, would they have had to write in anything?
Well, they didn't have to, but I believe this realtor wanted to be able to deliver something back to the homeowner is why that they were backing out. But James I want you to spend some time on the point you just made there, because I think it's a really good one.
Sure. During that inspection period, we talked about usually in our market 10 to 14 days, sometimes shorter than that. A buyer has the opportunity, the option to back out for basically any reason.
Yeah.
And so they don't even have to give that reason.
It doesn't have to be expressed. They just have to in writing back out.
Yes, correct. Yeah, it does need to be formal. You can't just say I'm out and not say anything to
Right.
them. There does need to be a formality. You are in contract, a legal contract, and so there does need to be a formality to that written out. But that's what the inspection period is there for. Justin touched on that last time. Go back and listen to that. It was really good. How that came to pass, why we have that inspection period, and what it's there for. So the inspection period is great for buyers. Use it, utilize it. Don't give it up. I realize in the market that there have been some people that have given that up in order to get their offer accepted. But I would highly recommend not doing that. Take the opportunity to get your home inspected, and then we can move into the next step of the process.
So we typically see most real estate agents, when they're structuring how to get to closing, they will do the home inspection first and then the appraisal, primarily due to cost. And generally people back out because of the home inspection, not the appraisal. And so your cost for the appraisal is more, so that typically is ordered by the lender.
Right.
Once the realtor gives us the go-ahead and said, hey, we're through inspections, rock and roll, go ahead and order that appraisal.
Yes. We tell our buyers all the time, do not tell your lender you're ready to go forward until you're ready to go forward. And for us, in almost every situation, we're not ready to go forward until we have that home inspection.
Yeah.
And we sign off on it.
Yeah.
And we get the response back from the sellers.
It's
Right.
We're good.
Yeah, I have had some people say, okay, now we can order the appraisal. We've had the inspection. Well, you're wanting to ask for a few things. Let's go to the sellers and make sure that everything's good and going to move forward before we do that.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, for most lenders, I know there's differences in what lenders do from a process standpoint, but most lenders, have to have something in writing from the borrower that says, hey, we're moving forward. They call that an intent to proceed. Most lenders want to have some form of payment either collected and or the information available to be able to pay the appraiser if the deal doesn't work out.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they typically pay for it at closing. And then they also have to have the contract, like fully executed, all signatures, with the right sales price and negotiated terms, because the
That's good.
appraiser must review the contract. And, you know, I can tell you that some people have, throughout time and my experience, have said, well, why does the appraiser need the contract?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know this, and I'm sure you're going to talk more about it, but in the contract, like, that's a very good indicative indication of what the sales price should be. If someone's willing to give X number of dollars at that particular moment in time, that's a really good indicator of what the market is saying about that home.
Yeah,
and so it is not the only indicator, and it's not probably not even the primary indicator.
And it's not a benchmark.
No.
Okay, and so, but to your point, it's great market data. But for the lender, we want to know that it was a true arm's length transaction, or that it was not, or it is not a true arm's length transaction.
Right.
And part of being able to discover that is through how the property was marketed and negotiated and come to an accepted offer, and the parties that are involved. Is the seller really the seller? There's some work going on there.
Yeah, there's all kind of things that go into the appraisal, and Justin is probably one of the people that is most adequate to talk about this.
Yeah, more well-rounded, I would say. There's definitely some experts out there that exceed my knowledge, but there's few that have been as involved in the whole process as I have at at a professional level. But so those things are needed for the appraisal to be ordered, and I say that almost more for my realtors and our viewers, because I'll get a call and be like, hey, let's order that appraisal. And I'm like, great, I'm right there with you. Let's do it. I need this, 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 and this.
Right.
Because otherwise it's going to land on the appraiser's desk and they're going to go, hey, you've asked me to solve a problem.
Right.
And the whole equation is not here for me to solve that problem. And so the appraisal's ordered, and it's ordered by the lender. And let me talk about that. Is there something that's required from a legal standpoint called appraisal independence? And appraisal independence is we have to prove, we actually have to have documentation proving how the appraiser was engaged, meaning that your parties who stand to benefit from the transaction cannot engage the appraiser. That means the seller, the buyer, the realtors, and or the mortgage banker, me specifically, if I'm the lender, or any lender, the originating person, the originating calls cannot engage the appraiser for the appraisal.
So how do you do it, Justin?
Well, you do it a couple of different ways, but typically a third party is introduced. Okay. At one time we called them appraisal firewalls. Okay? It was literally a firewall in between the lender and the appraiser. They have become affectionately known as appraisal management companies.
Okay.
And so the lender will engage the appraisal management company. The appraisal management company has a roster of appraisers, and there's some way that they're randomly selected based on certain criteria.
Yes.
And so you may be doing a home loan through said bank, but it may actually be said appraisal company that engages the appraiser.
Okay.
Okay. Why is that important? Well, you add another party in a line of communication, you can have a delay in the appraisal getting ordered.
Absolutely.
Because you got to engage the third party. Third party then has to engage the appraiser. What if first appraiser turns it down? They got to let you know that it was turned down. Do you want to reach out to another one? And it turns into a whole conversation. It's not just push button order appraisal sometimes.
Yes. No, and this is why AMCs keep their rosters very tight most of the time. So they work with these appraisers on a regular basis, daily basis. And so they're trying to cut down on some of that. So.
And appraisers are generally on a roster based on geographical knowledge as well as experience.
Right.
It's not just experience.
Sure.
And you certainly want to have, highly experienced appraisers on your roster, but it's very important that they have geographical knowledge, meaning that I could take the most experienced appraiser in Ouachita Parish, but it doesn't mean I want to send them to Catahoula Parish, because he may not have any geographical knowledge and doesn't know what the best and worst streets are and where people are willing to pay or not pay in those neighborhoods.
It doesn't necessarily mean that for the outliers in our region, Northeast Louisiana, doesn't mean that your appraiser has to live down the road from there, but it does mean that they should have knowledge or be able to obtain that knowledge very easily and quickly. And so in our area we have...
Oh, we're blessed.
Yeah. No, we are. We have a region that is full of knowledge, and people are very quick to share that knowledge. And so if an appraiser comes upon something that's like, that's different, they can reach out and they can find the information fairly quickly.
Yeah, most of your local banks are going to have assembled a really good roster of appraisers and who have been in the area for a long time, been doing the work for a long time, and then even if they haven't, they have access to the information and know how to get it and who to reach out
Absolutely.
to. And so, from a geographical knowledge standpoint, we're blessed with the appraisers now. When that appraisal is ordered, they're engaged, and that engagement is with the lender. Okay, why is this important? Because that becomes the client, and appraisals are confidential. They're very much viewed from a legal standpoint like medical records, meaning that, let's say I'm doing a loan for James personally on his house, okay? And I engage an appraiser through our firewall system, our third-party system. That appraiser is randomly selected. They agree to do the report, and as the lender, I'm the client and the intended user, but Mr. Douglas is also the intended user. However, even though he's an intended user, the appraiser by law is not supposed to disclose anything to him that's considered non-public record. And you would go, well, that's ridiculous. I'm paying for it and it's my house, right?
Right.
That would be the thought process about it. But trust me, there are situations where just because you're an owner and may be paying for it, you shouldn't have access to it. Think about a divorce proceeding or a lawsuit. And these rules are designed to protect all of those type of scenarios. And so I'm telling you this to tell you that the appraisal has to come back to the lender, and then the lender delivers the report to the borrower. And so if the borrower were to call the appraiser and say whatever, until they have a copy of the report, technically the appraiser is not supposed to disclose anything that's non-public information.
Typically there's very little communication between the appraiser and a buyer. Occasionally they will need to contact the seller for access to the home, to ask questions about anything that's going on. So there's more conversation there between the seller and the appraiser. But with the buyer, it's usually all through the lender.
Yeah. So. And before the buyer can have a question, they typically have the report. Yeah. But the appraiser is not supposed to deliver that directly to the user, which are the users. In that case, in this example, would be the borrower. And again, for the example I was using, I was actually thinking more of like a refinance situation. But James clearly pointed out that when you have a seller, the seller definitely can't know, even though it's his house being appraised or her house being appraised. Right. And so it, again, is confidential. And I want to clear a misnomer up. When your home is appraised for any purpose, whether it be for lending, whether it be for estate planning or divorces or whatever, that appraisal is confidential between the client and the appraiser. It doesn't go to the tax assessor. It's not made public. Getting your home appraised by an appraiser is not going to make your taxes go up.
No. However, I will put a side note here.
I love it.
And this is personal to me.
Yeah.
My home was assessed for nearly $50,000 more than what my appraisal came in at. And so if that is ever the case, you can take your appraisal to the tax assessor and say, my house is not worth what you said it's worth. And it has to be, I think, 90 days or 6 months or something old. But you can take that to the assessor and get them to reassess for what it's actually worth.
Yeah, and so a full appraisal by state certified appraiser will override what we would call a mass appraisal, which is how the assessor does appraise. It's actually a different model in the way they appraise, and that's why you can see that happen. We had a question from Tim that said, so why do you do it? Tim, help me understand exactly what part you're asking for why, and I'd love to answer that. But yeah, so that's...
Well, I'll go out on a limb for Tim here, and we're talking about appraisals. And so what is the difference between the home inspection and appraisal, and why is the bank asking for an appraisal, not a home inspection?
You're right. He just said, why do you appraise privately? So the reason you would do it is the problem to be solved is, hey, I want to know what is the current market value of my property. So you're buying information.
Right.
And the appraisal, when the appraiser goes out to a property, this is going to be useful, I think, to help answer this question. They have a series of question marks that they've got to answer. What neighborhood is it in? What school zone is it in? What is those location aspects of it? Is it corner lot, interior lot? What's the topography? They're answering all these questions about the
several pages worth of answers.
Yeah, the actual property itself. Is it or is it not in a flood zone? And then how is the real estate as defined, which would be another great topic for another show. How is the real estate as defined? How is it improved? Because, I think the general public thinks of real estate as the house itself, but actually that's the improvements of the real estate. And how is it improved? Is it improved with a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, or a 4-bedroom, 2.5-bath, whatever? But they're fact-finding. It's just facts, facts, facts. An appraiser, unless they're doing their scope of work on site, which is possible with technology, which is unlikely though, unless they're doing that on site, they're not going to leave the property knowing what it's worth.
Right.
They're going to leave the property knowing what they're physically can compare that home to with other homes. What are the elements of that house?
Yes.
Size, age, condition, location, quality of construction, utility of space, exterior and interior amenities, any deficiencies, any deferred maintenance. These are the things that they're fact-finding about while they're on site. So when the appraiser leaves, I actually had this question last week. It's like, hey, the appraiser's doing the inspection today. Will you send me the report this afternoon when you get it? I'm like, well, no, because that's the beginning of the appraisal process. The next 48 to 72 hours is where most of the work is going to happen back in the office in the actual analysis of the appraisal. And we ought to save that for another day because it'd be a good topic.
Sure. No, there's a lot here on both sides of home inspection, appraisals. There's a lot to be understood, and I believe highly necessary parts of the process of purchasing a home.
Yeah.
And so, but one other aspect of, he asked, why is it private? So why the firewall there? And that's just accountability, I believe, in that someone can't come back and say, well, the bank had a relationship with this guy, so they made the appraisal work in this situation. And that's just not how that process works. A lot of people get upset that an appraisal will come back right at sales price. Well, okay, well, it probably is worth right in that ballpark because it was in the market, someone was willing to give that amount, and it was there. So it's not uncommon for it to come back. But the bank, the buyer, the seller, none of those people are having an active relationship with the appraisal, and they're not influencing the appraisal value. So.
Love it. Emily says, does it matter the order to get a home inspection or an appraisal first? And so, Emily, I'll answer that quickly. It does not matter in the fact that there's like rules around it.
Right.
There's not. You can order both at the same time. You can order the appraisal first and then the home inspection. But the practice is to order the home inspection, complete that process, then order the appraisal, because the cost of the appraisal is generally more, and the odds of you deciding not to move forward because of the result of the home inspections is higher than it is the appraisal aspect.
Yes, more people will back out of a deal because of the home inspection instead of the appraisal. The appraisals, once you get to that portion, you have fewer options to get out of the contract,
Right.
and so do that second, do that after the home inspection, and it's usually twice as much.
Yeah. You would only speed those up if you were buying time, but there's an expense and a risk to that.
Sure. I mean, yeah, if you don't care about the $500 or $600,
Right.
I mean, just go ahead and go for it.
Right.
But if you're in a hurry, the appraisal process usually is 1 to 2 weeks, and depending on if you're getting a VA loan, you can say 2 weeks.
It's a 14-day guaranteed a lot of time that the VA appraiser gets.
Right.
You can't speed that up.
And Exactly. Now, it may come in early.
Sure, and they do.
And they do, but you're going to just have to just say, I have to allot 2 weeks
Yeah.
to get this back.
Exactly.
And so, but even in a non-VA loan, I assume 10 days.
10 days is what we like to prepare people for. We have a really good roster at Origin, so will we get it sooner? Yeah, we will at times, most of the time, but 10 days is your schedule.
Sure. Okay.
Well, we need to move into the top 5 portion of the show. Every week we bring you the top 5 real estate sales in Northeast Louisiana, courtesy of James Douglas. If you don't know, James Douglas is one of our local realtors here at Coldwell Banker Group 1 Realty in West Monroe. And
as far as I know, that's still the case.
yeah, yeah. So you have our top 5?
I do. And I'm going to point something out about all of these, and when we'll get into it. But number 5 is in Caldwell Parish, Columbia,
south of Washington,
1577 Blankstone Road.
Yeah.
It's 9 acres, and it's like a 3,200 square foot house.
That's a strong sell for Caldwell Parish.
That's a really it's a nice place. But here's one thing: it has a swimming pool.
Okay.
And all of these today have some type of exterior amenity. And so,
are you going to point each amenity out as we go?
I am. And
Okay.
so this one is a swimming pool.
Because I have to tell you, James, I hear all the time that pools don't add value.
Yes, they don't, but they do help it sell. And
Oh, come
it's
on.
got outbuildings.
All right, we're going to have a disagreement.
Okay, they do add value. However, the cost of this swimming pool to be put in did not add that much value to this property.
All right.
So
it's the technical term for that is it's a super inadequacy.
okay, I learned something today.
Yeah, so anytime the cost of something exceeds the value added, it's super inadequate.
Okay, there you go.
And that is the appraisal definition.
Well,
But to say it doesn't add value,
that's
is
wrong.
incorrect.
And that's incorrect on my part. But it doesn't add that much.
it doesn't exceed the cost.
Not at all. And not everything you will do to a house will add more value than you put in. So there are some things that we do to our homes that are super inadequacies.
Super inadequacies. And so for another episode in the future, we'll talk about amenities. It'll be a great episode. What is an amenity? And how do they impact value and marketability? That'll be another great episode.
So number 4, $410,000 in Monroe, Jefferson Davis Drive.
So this is off of Deborah Drive.
Yes, River Oaks subdivision, well-known North Monroe subdivision, typical home, 3,200 square feet, but it has an outdoor living area and a water view.
Okay.
I call it a pond, they call it a lake.
I call it overflow drainage.
That's what it is, but it's
forgive me, all residents there.
No, but it actually it's a really nice, like it's cleaned up. Yeah. It's a really nice view, but the outdoor living is an exterior.
That is a very popular exterior amenity that we've seen really pick up in the last 15 years.
Yeah,
where it's literally an outdoor living space.
Yeah,
and so
all the TV shows want you to have it. So
I mean, you're going to have fireplaces, you're going to have furniture, you're going to have TVs, you're going to have fans, you're going to have a kitchen.
Yeah,
like all outdoors.
Yeah, no, this is a nice place.
When it's 100 degrees outside.
Yeah, no. And so number 3 has almost all of this combined into one.
Okay.
Number 3 is $440,000 on a road that I can't pronounce.
Okay, it's Montaigne.
Montaigne. And, well, this is in another subdivision that's known this is off of Loop Road.
It's literally one of my favorite subdivisions.
Sure.
So Loop Road, great access in Monroe, and it is a private neighborhood in that it's one way in, one way out. And the houses are not zero lot lines, but there's basically 5 feet on each side, so it's really tight.
This is 0.15 acres.
And it's all house.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, that's true.
But it's a great neighborhood for if you don't want to have a ton to take care of and you
Yeah.
want to be really, convenient in town, it's a great little spot.
And it's a fairly difficult place to get you a house.
It is. If they're in good condition and priced right, they go.
And so to that, this was listed at $425,000 and sold for $440,000.
Wow.
So yeah, it sold for $15,000 more than asking price, and it has a pool,
Yeah.
a pool house, and outdoor living, like the whole gamut of things. So
What is that per square foot?
$203.
$203 a square foot?
Yes.
Holy smokes.
So your swimming pool added something there. No, that's
Oh, there's no doubt.
it's a nice place. It's a really nice house in
All right, so
what many would call one of the nicest.
got a question for you. I know you don't know the answer, and if you do, you don't need to say it that you know it. Do you think this house appraised for $440,000?
For the buyer's sake, I hope so.
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to that,
Yeah.
obviously.
And that offer feels like they said we didn't care.
And that's very possible. In today's market, people are putting in appraisal gaps.
Yeah.
So it's possible. So number two,
Number two.
the largest house on the top 5 today,
Whew.
6,600 square feet.
Heated. 6,600 heated.
Yes, and in Union Parish,
Okay.
$460,000 in Bernice.
Oh, man.
1950 Evergreen Road in Bernice.
Not the evergreen I grew off of.
No, not the Evergreen you grew up of. I doubt they have any 6,000 square foot homes on that Evergreen.
Nope, the Boys and Girls Club isn't that big.
No, but 9.5 acres, 6,600 square. This is only $69 a square foot. But the exterior amenity on this
yeah.
is a 30 by 50 shop.
That speaks highly to the type of buyer that wants to live.
Yeah, I mean, if you were going to buy almost 10 acres in Union Parish, you probably want that.
I know we call it an exterior amenity, but to some degree at this price point, that's expected.
Yeah.
I mean,
No, it is.
Yeah, it needs bathrooms and it needs a shop or it needs a barn.
I mean, if you're going to buy something in some of these other areas that we talked about, you're expecting some kind of outdoor living area.
Because if it's
type.
not there, you can almost be guaranteed that what the buyer is going to do is go, what is the cost to add it, and how does that factor into what price I'm going to offer?
Absolutely. And so all of these things are subdivision area inclusive. So you want to have everything that everybody else
Yep.
has.
You don't want to be the only one who has something for the most part. There could
Yes.
obviously be some exceptions.
Yeah. So, all right, number one. Dum, 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 dum. One of my favorite subdivisions in West Monroe,
Yeah.
Lost Lakes, $545,000, 305 Lost Lakes Bend. And this is only a 2-year-old house, sold for $180 a square
Wow.
foot. It did sell for below asking, which is the only, I think, if I went back and looked, right, it's the only one in the top 5 that sold for below asking.
What do you think that's for? Why do you think that is?
Could be a number of reasons. They actually could have, it could be an appraisal issue.
Yeah. And maybe they originally had a higher acceptance and then they had to
Right.
settle
We
for
don't know. I do not know the answer to that. There's several things that could have happened here. But it does have a swimming pool with a little bit of outdoor living area in it. This is a really nice house. It's...
And Lost Lakes, for those who don't know, because it is a lost lake, right?
Yeah.
Dad joke. It's off Arkansas Road, and it's a single entry into the neighborhood.
Yes.
And that neighborhood is
Growing.
steadily growing. You can't tell from the road from Arkansas
How far it goes back?
And so if you haven't driven down there, you might go check
I
it
think
out.
they're going to start phase 3 soon. So.
Yeah, and take the time, look at an aerial map, and you can see how much land is behind it, so you can get a sense for what that development's going to look like long term.
Yeah. No, it's nice. At least right now, it hadn't gone down. So.
Yeah.
And everybody's got a swimming pool. So.
And so our number one is in West Monroe, and we did top $500,000. We're not seeing 800,000, 1 million, but this is only a 1 week snapshot. You never know what next week holds, but you can find out by tuning in next Monday. Are we good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Next Monday for our next episode of Local Wisdom. James, I've had a great time this morning.
Yeah.
I hope you guys have learned a little local wisdom. As always, we'll reach out to James if you have any questions regarding real estate. If you have any financing needs around residential real estate, please give me a call, shoot me a DM. I'd love to help answer any of your questions or help you with your financing needs. And as always, I hope you have a marvelous day.
Thank you.